Let's learn how to make our sprites move in our game. I've got two sprites here. One's just hidden, Mr. Device. You can hide sprites by clicking on this little eye and then toggling this show button. So I'm going to show Mr. Device, and I've got two sprites here. I'm going to click on Anti-Bully Girl, and it's important when you're animating sprites to actually click on the sprite that you want to animate. So because I want to animate Anti-Bully Girl, I click on her and make sure this is all blue. And then I can come up to events. We pretty much always start with an event. An event means if something happens, if the game starts, or if I touch something on my keyboard, I want something else to happen. So I'm going to go to this event and grab this when space key pressed button. Notice how it's got this little ridge at the top? It kind of looks like a hat. And they're called hat blocks. It means like if you've got a hat on, it's the top of your head. It's the thing that's right at the top of your body. And with hat blocks, it's exactly the same. It means that they're right at the top of our code. So I've got my hat block and it says when space key pressed. We can change that. So see this little drop down? If you click on that, and I might change this to right arrow. So when the right arrow is pressed, so that means the right arrow on my keyboard, I want it to do something. And we can see how it's got this little joining connector here. So when the right arrow is pressed, I'm going to come over to my motions and I'm going to make it move 10 steps. Alright, let's see what happens. I'm going to press my right arrow and we can see that she's starting to move 10 steps. Alright, I want her to go back the opposite way. So I'm going to press the left arrow. Okay, nothing's happening when I'm pressing the left arrow, and that's because I haven't coded it to move when I press the left arrow. So we can see here, when right arrow key is pressed, move 10 steps. What I need to do is come back over to my events, and I'm going to create a new event this time. Instead of when the right arrow is pressed, I'm going to choose when the left arrow is pressed. And motion, and there's no move back block. Yeah, there's no move back block, which is annoying. So I'm going to just try and drag this move block over here. All right, I'm going to press the left arrow and see what happens. Okay, she's still moving right. She's still moving forward. So what's the opposite to 10? So on a number line, if we had 10, we go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The opposite to 10 would be negative 10. All right, let's see if that works. So I can move when I press the right arrow, 10 steps, and when I press the left arrow, negative 10 steps. Okay, so we can start moving our character right and left. That's pretty cool. I want to move my character up and down though. Okay. Alright, it doesn't look like there's any move blocks that say move up or move down. That's a little bit annoying. I'm just going to change my backdrop for a second. And I'm just going to come over and just choose this really cool backdrop. It's called the X and Y grid. Now you might have seen something like this in maths when you've been doing maths. They're called Cartesian Planes. And basically what it means is that we have two axes or two lines on our page. We have one moving in the X direction and then we have one moving in the Y direction. The way I remember it is Y to the sky. So the Y direction is always pointing up to the sky or down to the ground, while the X direction is going left to right. So I'm going to click on my anti-bully girl again, and let's see how we can make her move up. So when the up arrow is pressed, I'm going to change her motion, and if we have a look here, we can change Y by 10. So what this will do is when I click the up arrow, it's going to move her up our Y axis. So it's going to move up the Y axis by 10. Let's have a look what happens. That's cool. So that works. My right arrow works. My left arrow works. Now I just need to do the down arrow. So I'm going to come over to my events and I'm going to choose when down arrow is pressed. I'm going to go to motion and change my Y, not by 10, but the opposite, negative 10. And that's going to move it down negatively on our Y axis. Let's see if that works. Alright, so we're starting to get some pretty cool movement happening in our game. What you can also do is get rid of the move 10 steps, and you could change the x by 10 and change the x by -10. And let's see if that does the same thing. So when I press left, I'm going to change x by -10. When I press right, I'm going to change x by +10. Up, y by +10. Down, y by -10. All right, that's working great. If you want to make your character move even further, you could play with moving this to, say, instead of 10, I'm going to make it move twice as far each time I press the right arrow, and twice as far when I press the left arrow. So we're moving it by 20. So she's making bigger jumps now. Same when I go backwards. And that's a little bit about how we can make our characters move in sprites. Well, in Scratch.